Welcome to the Ovation Learning Institute podcast, your source for informative and inspiring conversations around the world of healthcare. In this unique segment, discover the individuals and organizations making a positive impact on the healthcare industry and bettering the health and economic wellness of their communities. Join us as we explore their journeys, challenges, and triumphs here on the Voices Ovation. Hello, everyone. We're so excited to have you with us today. I am David Winchester, Program Manager for Ovation Healthcare's Learning Institute. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with Ovation Healthcare's President of Technology Services, John Mason, and his wife, Dr. Delana Mason. John brings over 30 years of progressive leadership and technology experience to his role, and he continues to establish a collaborative and empowering environment that plays a key role in driving change in the health IT landscape. Dr. Delana Mason works in access and learning support at Lipscomb University. Delana has worked in secondary and higher education for the last 20 plus years, including roles in college admissions, student success, career counseling, teaching, and college counseling. Thank you so much, John and Delana, for joining me here today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you, David.
Happy to be here.
As I mentioned in our introduction, both of you are deeply involved in your careers that truly matter: healthcare technology and education. And these are fields that have real impact on people's lives. I'd love to know maybe what personal experiences or moments sparked your passion for making a difference through the career work that you both have chosen.
That's a great question, David. You know, as I think back to what got me in this career and really what got me started, I have to kind of reflect on the fact that I grew up in a military family. And so the idea of service was something I grew up with, right? My father was a career Army officer. We spent many years moving around and doing things as a service, right? So I think for me, that's maybe a start of that. I joined the military myself after college and spent 8 years on active duty. And then I landed in kind of this idea of leading people. So for me, I didn't pick the field. It just kind of is where I felt. But it was really more about leading people and helping make a difference. But what I will say, in my perspective, is healthcare IT and healthcare in general is a service, right? We're taking care of our mothers and our grandparents and our children. We can reflect on everybody we're taking care of. And for me, the thing is, I'm not making Diet Cokes and I'm not creating cardboard boxes or refrigerators, right? I'm doing something that really matters. And so I think for me, that's kind of what got me here. Is it just made a difference.
Thank you. Delana?
My background's very different from John's. I grew up in the same small town my whole life. And so the idea of moving around like John did with his family being in the military was something completely foreign to me. But I also knew that I kind of wanted out of the small town that I grew up in. And education was really the only way that I knew to do that. So education was always very important to me. I was a first generation college student, so I didn't necessarily have that support that, I had people in my family that had done that before, but my parents were very supportive and, always felt like I could do anything that I wanted to do. I was working on a master's degree after John and I were married, and it was a field in education, but it was the first time that I realized that you could make a career working in education. And specifically, I've worked primarily in secondary education. So I've worked in colleges and universities most of my career. And I loved it. I loved the idea of working with young people that were trying to figure out what they were doing with their lives. And so I've been more on the student success side of things in most of my career. And I've just always had a passion for that. I mean, that's just kind of where we have landed. Even John and I, through our church have worked with the college ministry or young adults most of our life. So that's just been a really good fit. And I feel blessed that I get to do something that I also really feel passionate about and enjoy.
So over these years, you guys both have been heavily involved in leading people, encouraging people, guiding students in directions of success. And I just, commend both of you for having that passion to want to serve and help people. But what's especially inspiring is that your impact doesn't just stop here in the U.S., but you're also making life-changing differences for young women in Central America. I want to spend some time today talking about what kind of impact you're making there. So, can you share a bit about how the Path of Hope Foundation started and what inspired you to help?
It kind of began with me, I guess, a little bit. So, as Delana mentioned, we were working in our church with college kids. We were in the college ministry. And probably over 20 years ago now, we were on a mission trip down in Honduras, and we were going down to build houses for people. And if you know much about Honduras, it's the poorest Central American country. Its poverty is right behind Haiti, so you can kind of get the picture there. It's pretty impoverished. And we would go down and build houses, and houses is a loose term. It was it's a four-sided wood room with a sloped tin roof and a door and a dirt floor, but it's better than what people had. So we were taking this group down, and one year, when you're on these sites, a lot of times you have a lot of kids that run around the site. They're wanting to be with you, they're wanting candy, just kind of hanging out. And I had this one young girl who just stayed with me the whole time. She kept walking around. Every time I went somewhere, she wanted to hold my hand. And she was unique in that she had been burned. So part of her face had a scar on it, and her hand had no fingers on one hand. She had been burned pretty severely. But I started talking to her, and I just asked a question. I said, "Where do you go to school?" And her response was, "Well, I used to go right over there." And in Honduras, what they do is they put in little 2 and 3 room schoolhouses in the villages, and they put the kids in first through sixth grade. They basically cover education through the sixth grade. So I was a little puzzled when she said I used to go over there, because she clearly wasn't old enough to be out of high school. So I started asking some questions, and I learned this story that, these kids, basically their education runs out in the sixth grade. And so I asked somebody, I said, "Tell me about her." And they said, "Well, she's very, very smart. But her mother works as a housekeeper or something, and just, doesn't make any money." And I said, "Well, how could I help her continue?" And they told me. And so we started funding her. I told a few people about it. Somebody said, "Well, I'd like to do that." And it kind of grew from that into suddenly I had all these people wanting to help. And specifically, we focused on girls. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think selfishly, I had 2 daughters, and I imagined their life that way, and so I thought, well, how can I help that situation? But secondly, one of the things you'll notice in Central America pretty predominantly is it's a very macho culture, right? A lot of men-centric. Women are left to take care of the kids and the house and all that. And every time we would go build houses, I noticed that we always had a woman and a bunch of kids there, but there was never a man around helping build this house. So we just decided we wanted to change that. So we picked girls and tried to focus on that. So that's really how it began. So one girl, really.
John, can you share what challenges you faced when you were starting the foundation, and how have you overcome some of those challenges?
Well, I will say there's a lot of challenges, right, that come with starting a foundation and starting a program like this. But fundamentally, the first challenge we had was convincing people in that first community that it was worthwhile of our time to focus on girls. We have a man that we work with in Honduras. He's a minister there, and he helps us with the program. But I can distinctly remember the first year I brought this up to him. He questioned why I would do girls. Why not boys? And I told him, and he said, "Well, it'll never work, but okay, if that's what you want to do, I'll help out." For me, that was one of the first challenges, right? Is just convincing people that couldn't see the future why you would do something like that. So I think that's one. Delane, I'm sure, has others.
The first thing that came to my mind is we have about 100 girls that we educate every year in the program. And I would say the first 4 or 5 years after we established the foundation, we were losing, probably 10 to 15 girls every year due to pregnancy. And it's not because we were saying, you're pregnant, we're kicking you out, but you're pregnant. Now you have a child that you have to raise. You can't do both. You just don't have the support system to do both. So they were dropping out due to pregnancy. And it was discouraging to me because, we're trying to get funding to have these girls go to school. And we felt like, they weren't seeing the value of this. But also, there wasn't a whole lot we could do about that. We weren't there full time. But some of the things that we did that I think have helped, one, I think it was just the community itself. They started seeing the results of what it meant to have these girls educated. They started seeing some girls graduate high school and what their lives were looking like after they had done that. So just them seeing success within their own community, that really, I think, started helping. But we would also bring in young women, to come to programs to talk to. We would gather all of the girls together and have them talk about the importance of staying in school and why it matters for them, and doing some basic education, doing some basic health education, but, having it be about them. This wasn't something, of course, John and I wanted each and every girl to be successful in finishing their education because we truly feel like that was going to help change their family and their community as a whole. And we have seen that. I don't even know the last person that we've lost due to pregnancy.
It's been easily 5 years or more since we've lost a girl to pregnancy.
And so, that's just tremendous. I think it's just really turned itself completely around. I think other challenges, especially early on, but, even still, is fundraising. I feel like John especially has 100 daughters. Well, we'll say 102 because we have 2 of our biological children. So that's a lot of pressure to be able to fund this, and they're going no matter what. So, the money's got to be there. So fundraising is always kind of one of those things. And we have done a lot of just word of mouth. So it's not like we're out there, this is our full-time job. We have other jobs and we certainly want this to be successful. But so that's always something that's there as a challenge.
As you talk about fundraising and donations and working through by word of mouth and hoping that people learn about Path of Hope and want to get involved, how are donations utilized at Path of Hope?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really glad that you asked that. We charge $350 a year to support a girl for her education. And 100% of that money goes directly to the girl. John and I certainly don't take any money. We don't have any paid staff. So the work that we are doing is all volunteer based. We certainly have partners there on the ground that are working with us, but all of the money goes directly to the girls so that they have what they need in order to be successful in school.
So that money covers basically transportation, because many of these girls live in remote villages, right? They don't live in the big cities. It gets them transportation to and from school. It covers uniforms and books. And it also covers basically some easy meals, something to eat during the day or whatever it might be. Now, what I would say is many of these girls, although we support them, they also work because their family has to have that to help the family survive. I know of a particular girl who used to get up at about 4 a.m. She walked about 2 miles to the bus in the dark. She went and sold tortillas for a few hours on the street. She went to school. She came home. She did her home chores and everything she had to do. And then she studied literally by candlelight. They had no electricity. And so this girl went all through that program and actually ended up in a university. You think about the challenges you're overcoming to get that education. And I thought it might be helpful, David, if I throw in one thing on this about the funds. A lot of people ask questions like, well, what do you get for that, right? Or what's the return? And I thought maybe just a quick economics lesson would be helpful too. About 85 to 87% of the population of Honduras makes $2 or less a day. And that $2 is the same $2 you and I make. It's not like it goes 10 times as far. And so, a couple weeks worth of food is about $15 for a family. If that's the case, if you can complete your high school education, you can count on probably anywhere from $10 a day to $15 a day. So it's a massive uplift. If you can get on to a college education, the return there is you're making $25,000-$30,000 a year, perhaps. You're almost upper class in Honduras. So the return, while $350 doesn't seem like a lot, it produces a ton at the other end of it, right? Because it literally pulls them out of poverty. And that's not hyperbole. That's real. Just getting that high school diploma gets you a real job. Otherwise, you're going to be left selling tortillas or working a fruit stand or whatever it might be.
Now, at this time, John, for that $350, that's a yearly for their education each year. Now, is their school system set up much like ours that would be 7th through 12th grade? Do they go through the 12th grade there, or?
They do. They have two options. You can do 7th through 12th, or you can do 7th through 11th. If you're going to go into a trade, generally you stop in the 11th grade and you may go on to a trade school like electricians or whatever. And we've had folks do that, go to nursing school or whatever. But otherwise, yes, you're going through the 12th. Different timing on school there. Their school year is February to November. I guess what we think of as summer break, theirs is really a winter break. Theirs is through the holiday season.
So as Path of Hope has been founded and helps these young ladies through their high school graduation, is there something in place that also helps them if they want to attend college, that Path of Hope works in that area as well?
We didn't start out thinking about college, honestly. That seemed so far down the road when we were first starting out that we just wanted to focus on getting their high school diploma. But we haven't turned anyone down that wanted to continue on. So we continue providing funds to those students to help them get through. And we've had a lot of college graduates. I'm so proud of the challenges and obstacles that these young women overcome in order to, really, they're still sacrificing in order to continue on. So yeah, we just keep helping them and are happy and honored to do that.
I literally just had a text a few weeks ago from someone down there of one of the girls in our program went all the way from 7th through 12th, just finished her college degree in finance and accounting. And she's going on to take a job in a business doing accounting work. Unheard of 20 years ago.
Well, and what's so amazing too is just rising above your circumstances and where you are, but being able to be gifted that gift of education to better their lives, and not just their lives, but their future family lives and their community and what they can give back. And so, the work that you guys are doing is touching so many people's lives. It's incredible. I believe that through my reading that Path of Hope began in 2008. And so as you look back over the years, how many girls do you think that Path of Hope Foundation has helped since it started?
Oh, gosh. Well, if you consider we have 100 girls about a year, and I think that ramped up to 100 girls probably within 2 or 3 years of starting the program.
I just did the calculation. It's about 1,300.
1,300. Okay. So there you go.
Wow. Incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? 1,300. Well, out of that 1,300, are there any stories that have really just stuck with you over the years?
Yeah. I think for me, and I'm sure Delana has some, there was a young lady named Lydia. She lived up on the mountain. Her home life was really hard. She lived up on the mountain, no electricity, no running water. Their house was literally made out of mud bricks. They hand make their own bricks up there. But Lydia also not only had a rough life, she had a mother who was a single mother, and she had 3 siblings that had epilepsy. And all 3 of those siblings were completely incapacitated by this epilepsy. If you know anything about epilepsy, it affects your brain, and they couldn't walk anymore. They couldn't talk. So she had to also help with these kids. She got started, went on to become a nurse. She lives down in the capital now, works as a nurse and helps support that family. Extremely smart girl. And I don't know why, but Lydia just always stood out to me as, gosh, what a hard life, but she overcame it all.
The thought that came to my mind was not about a specific girl or story. it was about grandmothers. Because when we are there and we are having programs and bringing all of these girls together, we will have so many grandmothers bringing their granddaughters that aren't in the program, that know about it and want their grandchildren to be educated. And the room will be lined with these grandmothers. And it's, wow, it's just so cool to see that they also want this for them and they know how important it is.
Yeah. Interestingly, the guy who first told me, this will never work, right? Why would you do this? You ought to focus on boys. He's our biggest advocate now, right? He helps find the girls, puts them in the program. And each time we go down, we get the girls all together in a big group. And as Delana said, we bring in some successful Honduran woman who's kind of overcome, and we work with them. But one of the first things he opens up every meeting with is he tells them, you're not going to be like your grandmother, and you're not going to be like your mother. And I think what he meant by that was culturally, that was just the expectation that you had. I guess I'll be like my mom. She had multiple kids and no husband, and she takes care of the house, and I need to find someone to help take care of us. And he told him, you're not going to be like that. And so he says that every time they get together, because he wants to remind them, you're doing this for a reason.
That is powerful. We've talked about these amazing scholarships that your foundation's able to provide for these young women. But John, you mentioned earlier too that it kind of started out with helping families with housing. I mean, that kind of support is life-changing as well. Is that something that you guys still do, is help with housing?
Well, we don't necessarily through our foundation. Now, oftentimes we'll take other groups down and build houses that are for the families of the girls. So we make sure that they get taken care of as well. But we don't through the foundation just because of the way, a nonprofit works. You have to have it for particular purposes. But I will say that we do that. We also take care of a lot of personal needs that come up in a family. Sadly, one of the things that we often have to help support is in the death of a parent or someone, they don't have the money to buy a casket, to pay for a funeral, any of that kind of stuff. So we help out day to day, not just with education, right? I view them like my daughters, and there's just things that they can't do, but they need. So we try to take care of that when we can.
That's incredible. So John and Delana, thank you so much for sharing your hearts with us. And when I hear things like this, I mean, I just want to know what I can do or how I can become involved or what my family can do to help make a difference. So how can we become involved in this life-changing foundation if we chose to do so?
We've got a website, pathofhopefoundation.org, and we would love for anybody to check that out. If you feel compelled to donate, you can donate online, and certainly that money is going to go right to helping educate girls.
And if nothing else, just pray for those girls, right? They need that.
Well, pray for those girls. I agree. And also to pray for you guys in your wisdom of leading this foundation, and just so thankful that this was laid upon your hearts and that you were obedient to kind of follow that lead to do so, and to look at these over 1,300, these ladies whose lives have been changed, and not just theirs, but their family and their communities. And that says so much.
Well, thank you. David, one of the things I have a lot of people often ask me, well, I wouldn't even know how to do that. Neither did I. Neither did Delana. We just figured it out, right? So you just have to do something if you feel compelled to do it. You can't sit around and go, well, I don't know how, so I won't. You grapple through it. So there's lots of ways to help people anywhere. Certainly we love the support, but if somebody's sitting there thinking, well, I could never do something like that, yeah, you can. I did it, and we did it together, and we didn't know a thing about it.
I agree. That is great advice. And, if you see a need, then, ask yourself, how can I meet that need, and what can I do to move forward to meet that need? Thanks so much, John and Delana, for sharing your stories and the amazing work that you're doing, both here at home and with the Path of Hope Foundation. It's really inspiring to hear how your passions have turned into something that's making such a real difference in people's lives, especially for those young women in Central America. I love how you're not just talking about change, but actually creating it. Whether it's through education, healthcare tech, or assisting girls through school, it reminds me that when we put our hearts into what we do, the impact can be huge and life changing. To everyone listening, I hope you're feeling inspired to get involved however you can and wherever you can, because every bit helps. And the work John and Delana are doing is proof of that. Thanks for tuning in today. We hope that you have enjoyed this special Voices of Ovation episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on LinkedIn at Ovation Healthcare. And if you're interested in learning more about the Path of Hope Foundation, please visit www.pathofhopefoundation.org. Have a great day.